Okay, this is another shocker. This is the bottom of the toe, and the front is going this way. This is the outside where you have the heavy-duty callus, and this is a heavy-duty callus, and I mean it's like this thick. And I'm going to show you very carefully and closely. This is the gnarly little pad you have at the inside of your big toe. You can feel it on your own foot. And they have gnarly little spots here and there that are the impactful places. Then they have this fabric, and I'll show you this in a microscope in a second. And I have this in a microscope right now looking at the callus. And here it is up here. Hold on, I have to turn the lights off so that it comes down to its correct color. You see that? That is the cornified skin on the callus. And these black spots are like bumps. They're little bumps, and I'll show you a different shot. And all of this over here. Whoops, wrong mouse. Two computers always confuses me. This is some of the metals and so forth that are in here. The blood, red blood, black blood, all that. Because it carries a lot of gold. There's a lot of gold in here too. That's the key. Well, that's not a key, but it's, and this is one of these bumps, and that pit. This is what's called grip skin. In the grip skin, it has these fibers that are really tough, and they, you don't see them in the normal size skin, but in these giants, I can see them. And this is, I think that's from a lung or something. That, you know, and I got so much stuff here. This is some gold flakes that were in here. Same thing here. These little pits where blood ran. And then there's a lot of crystals in these too, because wherever, it's heavy with the silicates where there was voids. Just think about it that way. And Yale and all of them, they understand this now. I presented all this long ago. I said exactly what they are saying now, and they agree with it, but it's kind of hush-hush at the moment, but it shouldn't be. This is reality. These are giants. And this guy had toenail fungus. It's a very strange world, my friends. Okay, my friends, I'm having a hard time presenting this with a straight face, but it is all factually true, but it's insane. That is a giant toe. It appears to be a human being as far as I can determine. This guy had toenail fungus. That's the toenail right here. This is the callus, and I'll show it to you. There's just no question about it. And this side is the side that gets all that flappy skin over here. And this side is where you get all the callus, is the outside of the big toe. And that is the toenail. Now here's the big tendon that runs up so that you can do this, you know, or whatever it is. And this flap here, you see this? This is what they call tunica. And it wraps these bones. Every bone has a wrapping. I have another bone here I can show you, and I'll put it in a microscope and show you the wrapping. And there's a seam where they come together, this tunica. And this is the callus. And I mean, this is a monster. All right, now look at this carefully. I got a ton of shots of this, and I have this thing sitting right here on a bench right here. But I think the best way to do this is with a panel of shots, all right, which I did take. All right, this shot here is pretty clear. This is the toe, and this is the callus, and they wrap right around like that. And I'll show you, you know, in these giants, you can see a lot more than you can on a normal person. This is the toenail. That, I believe, is where there was toenail fungus, or it's just somehow blew out all the stuff out of this one spot. I can't tell one way or the other, but I think it might be toenail fungus. It sure looks like it. When you look at toenail fungus, it looks exactly like this. All right, so that's that one shot. Don't forget, callus this way. Let's look at the other side. All right, this is the other side. This is the side that bumps up against your toe, and it's got all this wrinkly looking skin, and that's normal. This is where you have your artery and vein coming in, and that big tendon. And again, there's your fingernail, and that's where I believe this was fungus. I mean, there's toenail, and that's the fungus. All right, I mean, I can't see any way you can miss it. That's where the toenail was, and that's the callus. You know, if you show this to your teachers or your professors or your anatomy people or any of that, and they say, no, that's not what that is, just a rock, I would question their ability to think. This is not something that is accepted, obviously, because nobody ever expected this. But I got them all over my property. I've got them, look at this. That's from one. All right, now, this was DNA tested. The other one wasn't, but this still has its fingernail. I think this is a fingertip. I'm almost 100% certain, and it has fingerprints and everything on it. Now, you see this little piece right here? You see that? I think the fingernail has sort of decomposed down to a layer here. I don't know why that stayed, but other than that, it's absolutely flawless. Flawless. And then there was the fingerprints over here, and the same thing over here. It had the bumper pad between the bones, tunica all over it, vein and artery here. I broke this off to get blood out, and I did. I got DNA, and it came back human mitochondrial DNA. And here's the fingerprints that were on that. That's what I broke off so I could get down inside. You can't get blood from the outside pad. It's just too dense. They call it keratinized, cornified, whatever. But below, it's saturated with blood. I mean, literally saturated. And then it said that the quality was excellent. It was really, literally red blood came out of there. I'm not kidding you. It's not that hard to get, well, it's almost impossible not to get blood out of rocks. Anyway. I'm showing you what I'm showing you. You believe me or you don't believe me. That's all I care about. It doesn't matter to me. And this was another one I have. Now, this one is huge. That's 3 feet long, that fingertip, 3 feet long. DNA tested and so forth. I had another one out here. This is the hand, and it's a left hand, and that is about somewhere around 4 feet wide. And this is the grip skin. You see the little silvery stuff peeling off there? That's the grip skin. That is that dense cornified skin. And it's on your palms, your hands, and your feet, and your fingertips and all that. Now, I have fingertips, and I had that CAT scan, and I had a DNA tested, and it's all human. Same thing. And these are the pads of your hand. That's the cleave in between. This is the left hand. That's that tendon that runs right down. You got one too. And your thumb goes off this way, and your little finger goes off that way. I have fingers and knuckles and all kinds of stuff from this one. And this I had CAT scanned. This is the fingertip. And that's where the fingernail of this was. Maybe he had... No, it says a finger. Fingers usually don't get it because they're not in that wet, moist environment like your toe, your feet. Anyway, but maybe this is a toe. I don't know. I'm getting, I tell you, and this thing is pretty good size. This one here is only about 7 or 8 inches long. The toe is 11 inches. This toe, front to back here, is 11 inches. And this, whatever it is, fingertip, I believe, I think 7 inches. And this monster here is 36 inches from front to back. 3 feet. That thing is absolutely enormous. And they all have the same characteristics. You see, they all have this heavy-duty tendon that makes them go. That's that fabric I talked about, the tunica. It wraps right around it. And whenever you see the red and the black, that's your blood or your vein and artery blood. Red and black is vein and artery. The black is the vein, the red is the artery. The red is usually quite mobile. The black sets up hard. Sets up very hard. It's called hematite, magnetite, I'm sorry. The black is magnetite. And the red is hematite. And that's what they make iron out of. It's blood. It's iron blood. And this, of course, is the bottom. And that's that pad. Like is a little really heavy-duty calcified pad on your toe. here and there. There's one or two. This one has one here and one back here. And I imagine everybody's got those, but maybe he was even walking sideways or something. I don't know. You know, his foot was off balance and he had to quantify one area versus another. But this is so obvious what we're looking at here, that to deny this any longer, it just doesn't make any sense. And like I say, I don't have just one of them. I got quite a few specimens that I can, and 3 of them are DNA tested, and a couple of 7 CAT scans. And I was in an area here that has exceptional preservation. And the same Yale talks about it. Well, hold on, I'll show you. Okay, here it is right here. Yale agrees with everything I'm talking about. Exceptional preservation of soft-bodied creatures due to silica-rich oceans, which was a worldwide flood. They say this was worldwide. Exceptional preservation, but they think it was before life started. They say life was wiped out at that time. That's exactly what it says in the Bible. And they say they did, well, hold on. All right, they say they lived in dense, diverse communities on the sea floor. Many of them are outright bizarre in appearance, do not resemble any organisms alive today. And that's from Lydia Tarhan, the lead author from Yale. And they want to understand the relationship between the complex animals that evolved shortly thereafter. Because they say it was completely wiped off the face of the earth at this point. Are the Edakara organisms some sort of failed evolutionary experiment? Or do they include the ancestors of animals subsequently colonized in the oceans? Well, they're all, to them, bizarre, crazy things, which I don't disagree with that. But they don't know the actual diversity because their eyes can't open big enough and they don't want to talk about it. And they're trying to claim that they figured this out because it was sand. It wasn't sand, it was mud. And they say because of the occurrences, that it could have turned into rock in a matter of hours or years. Animals into rock occur in a matter of hours or years, not thousands of years, millions of years. And they talk about sand. It has very little to do with sand. Sand is not conducive to the movement of what they call the transition metals through the body to preserve these soft-bodied creatures. I figured all this out. It's nucleophilic substitution. They still don't have a clue. And okay, I presented this long ago to Yale, much earlier than this. All my stuff, DNA tests, CAT scans, and everything. But finally, by 2016, they did write the paper saying that cementing a theory about sea creatures. No, it was because of a flood, a global flood, and they say it was worldwide. So you don't have just a sea here and a sea there. You have a worldwide flood. And it's exactly what it says in the ancient texts, in the Bible, in the myths, all that stuff. And they wrote it in 2016. Like I say, I presented this long ago, and I put out a book in 2015 that said, you know, minds are in collision. They can't accept the reality of what we're living in. And it says many of these creatures were outright bizarre in appearance, do not resemble any organisms alive today, said Lydia Tarhan, the Yale first author. And they want to figure out, you know, they think it might have been a failed evolutionary experiment because they say everything was wiped off the face of the earth, basically. And they said because of the particular situation, which was, it was a great worldwide hot water flood. I don't think they understand that, but they do know there was a lot of silicates. Why would the silicates just appear in this one period? I do know why. And it has to do with the chemistry of membranes, phospholipids. But anyway, and it's all nucleophilic substitution, where you have nucleophiles coming in, substituting for the things that were there, and they just leave. And then they become stable and created these soft-bodied, perfectly preserved creatures, just like I showed you with the toenail. And I mean, they're perfectly preserved. I have stuff here that's absolutely flawless, flawlessly preserved. And this happened in a matter of hours or years rather than time frame of thousands and millions of years. So really everything that they have presented, they can't stand behind anymore, not whatsoever. They just keep coming up with these little fixes, but there's no fix here. All right, so here's the fingertips or the toe. And there's the callus that wraps around. And you see these seams? And you see the seam on this right here? That's what the ancients called tunica, and it's a wrapping. It's like a rubber fabric bag that coats all the bones and everything. Now I have another bone right here, a small bone, and it's the same thing, mud fossil. Now this has, you see these little that line right there? I don't know if you can see that or not, but that's where the seam is. I'll put it in a microscope. Maybe it'll be a little more obvious. But they also, it's like a little crescent roll comes together with a little, they pinch right together and they seam right together. And that's what wraps these bones. And that's why they preserve the way they did. The inside turned to basalts and stones and so forth. There's one tiny little piece of bone left in this particular one. Sometimes they will have a taste of bone. It's very, 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 very rare. This is almost basically I can't remember any other ones, to be honest with you, that had any bone at all. And that's all this has. That's all it has. All right, I'm going to put it quickly in the microscope, and then we'll wrap it up. All right, there it is in the microscope, looking down at it. I put a little bit of water on it so you can see the contrast. You see the white? That's the last bit of bone. It's in that whole bone. It all transitions into some other form of mineralized stone. All right, think of it that way. That's all I can tell you. It can turn into basalt, limestone, mudstone, quartz. I mean, there's a million different things that can happen. It depends on the conditions it was in, how long it was in there before, how soon it dried out, the pH, the amount of transition metals, all kinds of things. It's not, and I've studied basically all of them. I think I pretty much understand the transition process. Now let me show you the seam. I told you this also has a seam in it. All right, this is, I had to get way off of it so that you could come down and see this. But this is where it transitions. This is a seam and that's a seam. And it tags together right there and just slaps together. All right. It's about the best I'm going to be able to do. But that's where these seams come together. Let me show you, I'm going to show you something else. I have a no-toe here that you can see a seam that'll blow your mind. Get ready. All right, this is a no-toe. The toes are built into them. I don't know, it's human-ish. That's where the tibia would come down to sit, and the fibula sits on the side. A fibula, and it sits on the side like this, and it only is held in by a couple of little ligaments. Now, when I talk about seams, this is a foot of some kind of humanish creature. Look at the end here. You want to see a seam? Look at that. It almost looks like it's some kind of special sports shoe or something. It has a logo on there and a little dot in the center. That's a tag that holds these fabrics together. You see it? These, and they all have seams. You see all the seams? And this thing here bolts it all together in one place. They all have the same stuff. They all have seams in. This is another bone here, or I don't know what it was. But you see all where they coming apart here? That they were seamed together there. There's a vein and artery in this one. And this here is the actual skin. That was where the hide was on whatever this was. I don't know. No idea. But it died laying like this, flat. They all pretty much were flat on one side. And this is a very strange pattern on the bottom. I'm not sure what the heck happened there, but they're all body parts. And that one has another sort of wacky looking seam on it. You see it coming across there? It's locked together. Ancients called it tunica. Okay, my friends, I guess I'm going to leave it sort of at this. That is toenail fungus, and I think that is, it could very well be. I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying this is definitely a giant toe of some kind of creature, and I believe it's human. And this is that callus. I mean, look at that monster. And look at the depth of it. Oof. It's heavy too. Look at the thickness of that callus. That's the thickness right there. Look at that. It's freaking mind-blowing. And that's what caused, and see all these bumps here? That's called cornification, cornified skin. All those little bumps. I don't know if you can see those or not. But this should have been where the blood blew out of, and it couldn't. So all the black blood blew out this side. You see how that's just completely black? All right. There would have been a vein on one side, artery on the other, and that's the vein right there. I don't know if you can see that circle or not. All right. And there would have been another one on here too, somewhere, more than likely. They're probably very similar to what ours are now, and you have a couple on each side, and then you have a couple on the tips. And that's where your blood circulates from the artery, comes back up the vein. Same thing on your fingertips. They're the terminals. So this is, to me, this is about as obvious as it gets. So I guess that's it.